Good morning. It doesn't sound like mics are on.
Oh, goodness, who did
But
that?
it doesn't, I don't think it's, there you go, there you go. Okay.
Sure, who touched that?
Okay, good morning. My name is Ellen Kokinda. I am opening up the staff hearing officer meeting of April 5th, 2023. Starting with preliminary matters, any requests for continuances, withdrawals, postponements, or addition of ex-agenda items? I have none. I have no announcements to make. Moving on to announcements and appeals. There are no appeals today, but I do have a couple of announcements. One is an announcement of the staff hearing officer decision on a coastal development permit for a project at 1311 San Miguel, PLN 2022-00191. To allow coastal development permit for the proposed development in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the city's coastal zone. The 6,970 square foot lot is developed with a 1,952 square foot two-story residence and a 268 square foot attached garage. The proposal consists of the addition of a 580 square foot accessory dwelling unit. And then also a determination that the project is categorically exempt from further environmental review pursuant to California Environmental Quality Act guidelines, section 15301, new construction or conversion of small structures. So pursuant to So let me just kind of walk through this a little bit. This is just an announcement pursuant to the municipal code. Whenever there's a proposed development involving the addition of an accessory dwelling unit to an existing single unit residence, it's under the purview of the staff hearing officer, but there's no public hearing, so it's just an announcement. I am able to accept written correspondence, which I have. I just want to acknowledge for the record that I received public written correspondence from Brad Folling, Eric Anderson, and Joan Sullivan for this project that was distributed prior to this hearing. So I do want to acknowledge those comments. But my decision today, this announcement today is the final action of the city and is not an appealable action. I did read staff report, Ms. Brodesson's staff report, and I went out on site for a site visit, and I agree with the conclusion, so I can go ahead and approve the coastal development permit and the determination that this project is categorically exempt with the 15303 new construction or conversion of small structures. My decision is also there are conditions of approval that apply to this particular project, as Ms. Brodesson outlined in her staff report, and I have no new conditions of approval to add. I do just want to acknowledge some of the public comment that even though that this is not an appealable decision, as part of those conditions of approval, the accessory dwelling unit is, there's a recorded covenant that will be required as part of the conditions that don't allow the accessory dwelling unit to be used as a short-term rental. So I just want to acknowledge that that's part of the understanding, and then also for the applicant, as you all are aware of the conditions proposed. So that concludes my announcement for 1311 San Miguel. I have a second announcement for 1414 Santa Rosa. This is a project, the staff hearing officer decision on a project, 1414 Santa Rosa Avenue, for a coastal development permit for the proposed development in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the city's coastal zone. The project consists of the addition of an accessory dwelling unit as a new second story to the existing one-story house. The project also includes one-story additions, remodeling to the existing house, replacement of an existing attached two-car carport and roof deck, with a new attached two-car garage and roof deck that qualifies for a coastal exemption based on the project site's location away from any beach, wetland, bluff, or environmentally sensitive habitat areas. And then the second is a determination that the project is categorically exempt from further environmental review pursuant to California Environmental Quality Act, Guidelines Section 15303, new construction or conversion of small structures. Again, this is very similar to the last one, that this project, anytime when there's proposed development that involves the addition of an accessory dwelling unit to an existing single-family residence, the staff hearing officer is the one to review that without a public hearing, so I will not be opening up public comment today. I can accept written correspondence, but again, there's no public comment. I did not receive any public comment on this particular item. And I did go out for a site visit, and I agree with staff's conclusion in the staff reports, the findings in the staff report. So I can go ahead and approve the coastal development permit for 1414 Santa Rosa Avenue, and also the determination that it's categorically exempt given section 15303 for new construction or conversion of small structures. Again, that decision is, I agree with staff's conclusion with the conditions of approval that will be subject to this project, and I do not have anything to add at this time. And again, this is a final action of the city and not an appealable decision. Okay, that was a long set of announcements. I'm going to go ahead and move to public comment for items not on today's agenda. If anybody in the audience wishes to speak on items not on the agenda, please raise your hand. Or Ms. Scu, do we have anybody attending via Zoom that wishes to speak on items not on today's agenda?
Well, we do have attendees, but none that have raised their hands as of yet. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and close public comment and now open it up to the first item on the outside of preliminary matters, but on our formal agenda, 1635 State Street. This project site is located in the El Pueblo Viejo Landmark District, Part 1. It's a proposal to convert 1,101 square feet of a 2,496 square foot commercial structure to a single unit residence. The project includes reconfiguration of existing rear stairs, installation of a water heater, and permitting of an as-built condensing unit. 1 van accessible and 2 standard parking spaces and 1 bicycle space are proposed. A design review waiver is requested to waive the requirement that a fence or hedge surround the private open yard. So the discretionary applications under the jurisdiction of the staff hearing officer today are zoning modification to grant relief from open yard standards in terms of location, dimensions, and minimum area, and then a determination that the project is categorically exempt from further environmental review pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act Guidelines Section 15303, new construction or conversion of small structures. So today I have, excuse me, sorry, let me go back. I have Ms. Burkhart here, who's going to be giving the staff presentation. If I could ask Ms. Gu to switch over to the other screen. Okay. So whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Gu, that didn't switch over. It's the laptop. It should be the laptop.
There we go.
Thank you, Ms. Kokinda. Thank you for reading that project description. I think you got an idea of the project. I just want to talk about the site constraints. It's located at the southwest corner of State and Valerio Street intersection. It's constrained by the existing development on site as well as parking requirements from the current code. It does comply with current code. And so taken together, those two components occupy about 75% of the lot. And then you can see up at the top, there's a thin strip of landscaping at the, what is that, the southern interior lot line. And then at the northern lot line along Valerio Street, there's a patio and a deck along with some planters and stairs that take up that area. And as this project is proposing a new residential unit, they do also need open space, and it's mixed use, so they need, I'm sorry, not open space, open yard. They need common open yard and private open yard. So they're proposing to use the existing deck and patio for that purpose. They are not quite large enough, the dimensions aren't quite right, and they are located in the front yard, so that's what the modification request is asking to allow. There would be no changes, except for the walling in of one door where the private yard is located, and then a wooden barrier on the deck to separate the entrance, as that's not allowed by our code to be part of open yard. And staff is supportive of this request, just because there's really no space to enlarge these areas. There's no feasible location on site no other location to have them be. And because no changes are proposed to the patio or deck, the appearance from the street and the neighborhood remains unchanged. This project has been to the historic landmarks. They received positive comments regarding the aesthetic appropriateness of these requests. And so along with your determination today on the modifications, staff is also looking for you to uphold our determination that the project is categorically exempt from CEQA per section 15303 under conversion of small structures. And then I do want to talk about the palm tree real quick near that entrance. We did a little back and forth with transportation staff as well as Mr. Slack, the urban streets supervisor, street trees supervisor. So transportation is fine with the retention of the palm. Mr. Slack does not see an issue with that, as the roots are very amenable to excavation. However, there will be a public works inspector. They will let Mr. Slack know when excavation is happening, and if it cannot be retained, they will authorize its removal. But they really don't see that being an issue. And with that, I think I'll hand it over to Ms.
Okay.
Van Ryn.
Thank you, Ms. Burkhart. If you could please introduce yourself for the record and then walk us through any of your considerations of kind of why and what your thoughts are.
Okay, my name is Brooke Van Dyne. There we go. Brooke Van Dyne. I represent Sherry and Associates Architects on behalf of the owner. And as Barbara was mentioning, these are the two patio areas that are currently existing at the existing commercial structure where we would like to use this area for private open yard. So there's an existing enclosed patio and there is a raised deck area. Typically, the raised deck area, as Barbara mentioned, is not allowed for open yard area. But we do plan on installing a wood barrier so that it is not part of the entrance. It will be its separate private deck, and that's about 148 square feet. And I do have some site photos that I think will give you a better representation of what it actually looks like. Okay, so this is the existing railing on the deck. Well, let me show you. Well, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. My apologies. Okay. So here is the elevation, and you can see right here, this is the enclosed patio area, and then this is the raised deck area. And go back to, my apologies, it's always difficult using someone else's computer.
It's never intuitive.
It's never the
and,
same.
You're doing great, actually.
Okay.
So no complaint.
So this is the raised deck area, and this is the area at the front entrance where we are planning to install a wood barrier so that they will have this nice outdoor deck patio area outside of what would be a bedroom and it will be separate from the entrance. And we also have, so this is the palm tree that Barbara had mentioned, and she covered that we've worked with Nathan Slack, and he said that palm trees are pretty sturdy and can withstand quite a bit. So they don't expect that the construction or ground disturbance in that area is going to be an issue. This is the enclosed patio that is just right off of the public right-of-way sidewalk on the Valerio Street side. And this will also serve part of the open yard area. It's enclosed, and because of the rock wall and the wooden fence that is above, it is somewhat screened from the public view, but it is, part of what is already there. So we're not proposing any changes to it, but because the areas are smaller than the required open yard dimensions, that's what we're seeking approval for, is for the reduction in those open yard areas. And then this doesn't fall under the modification, but this is the exterior stair that we're looking to reconfigure just for the new parking that will go in to accommodate the new ADA van accessible parking space. And this is just another image. Other than this reconfiguration of the exterior stair, that's really the only structural exterior change that we're making to the structure. We're keeping the railing, all the same colors, same materials, minimal exterior alterations on this project. So, I think that's it for the pictures.
Thank you so much. That concludes the applicant's presentation. I'm going to open it up to public comment. If anyone in the audience wishes to speak, if you could, Ms. Gu, if you could switch it back over to the, if anybody attending wishes to comment on this particular item, please raise your hand using the raise hand icon, and Ms. Gu will call on you.
We do not have any participants in the Zoom.
Okay. All right, I'll go ahead and close public comment. If Ms. Gu, do you mind switching back to the applicant's plans? Thank you. This is always a fun exercise. Okay, so public comment is closed. I would love, Ms. Van Dyne, can you walk me through, pull up the floor plan and show like the sequencing of how the spaces will be used, both the open yards and which groups it's serving?
Yes. So both of these open yard areas we're planning to serve for the residential unit. When we had first met with city staff about this, some of the staff comments that we had received were to try to find a way to get access to this enclosed patio area from the main residence, but because of the elevation change between finished grade and finished floor, if we were to add, some sort of stairs, it's just cutting more into that open yard area. So it is only accessible from the sidewalk through the wooden gate at the front. And then the raised deck that is at the finished floor of what will be the residence, it is raised. And so there are two existing staircases up to that landing area. One of those sets of stairs will now only serve as the entrance to the residence. The other one, you will be able to access that deck patio area from the sidewalk or from the proposed bedroom of the residential unit. I'll zoom in a little bit more for you. Just without further reducing the area of this enclosed patio, because there is a fireplace that already encroaches into that patio area. We didn't want to take out any more space for stairs. So it's maybe not ideal that it's only accessible from the sidewalk, but as Barbara mentioned, there are a lot of lot constraints, and we don't have the additional extra space. So just in the spirit of space saving, we would like to just leave that as it is. This is where we will be installing that wood barrier to match the existing wood railing so that it is separate and not attached from the entrance landing to the residential unit.
Is that something that you and your client wanted, or was that staff direction to try to
Staff
create?
direction, that it needed to be separate. And so we had to meet that requirement, put in that wood railing to
Right.
separate the two.
And curious kind of what your configuration of your floor plan is. Because what I'm noticing, when I went out on site and I am looking at the floor plan and kind of seeing how that serves as a bedroom. And so it's kind of a unique situation
Right.
it's a practically ground floor, but, first floor exposure, you're really close to State Street. So I'm just curious what your rationale is instead of putting the dining area, kind of more the dining area and kind of having a separate bedroom, and just kind of what your considerations were for that.
Sure. So taking a look. Oops. So a lot of what was driving this was to make as few alterations as possible. There is an existing break room in that structure. With the way that it's laid out, the client had, like I said, wanted to make as few changes as possible, and they liked the idea of having that deck area come off of the bedroom. It is close to the street, but converting a commercial space to a residential unit, we're just working with what we've got, and that does give them a little bit of outdoor area outside of the bedroom. And so we were kind of just working around it and trying to keep, there's a living room entrance, and then there's an entrance off of the kitchen for the existing stairs that are already there. There's a powder room, so the location of that, we were kind of just working around the things that are already there.
Certainly. Okay, I think those are my questions, and thank you for answering the question about the palm tree as well. So,
Would it help to see the elevation of those proposed?
yeah, let's do.
Okay.
That sounds great. Thank you.
So here is that proposed elevation. So this is facing the commercial structure and the residential unit from the Valerio Street side. State Street is over here off to the left. So this is that existing sandstone veneer wall at the deck and also at the patio area. That's where they have the wood fence currently already there with the wood railing already at the deck. And then this is the proposed reconfigured stair on the side. So this just gives you an idea of the elevation and the doors and windows. That was one thing we wanted to keep the doors and windows. So that was kind of also driving what rooms were placed where. And especially with the entrance, it just made sense to keep the nice, pretty front entrance and side lights where it is instead of changing that and trying to get it to work with the open yard. There were a lot of moving pieces on this one. So it was kind of a game of Tetris to get it to all fit in.
That makes sense. And do you think there's a benefit to creating more of a contained private space for that one bedroom with that additional
The wood
fence,
barrier.
the barrier? Yes, I'm
Right.
like trying to think what we would call that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and so like I said, that was a staff comment thing from our letter of completeness, was that open yard areas just are not allowed to be part of the entrance. And so our resolution to that was just to make it separate instead of just one big open deck. If staff is willing to accept it without the barrier, we would be happy to take out the barrier and just leave it as one big open deck area, it is still usable, and even if it is part of the entrance landing, there's room for outdoor furniture, chairs, a little table, something to enjoy the outdoor space.
Do you mind pulling up the site plan again?
Sure.
That's kind of my question is like, this is such a, I'm thinking about it because it's such a small space.
seen
And it's like,
it,
yes,
yeah.
and, I walked up there and I have a sense of scale. And I understand, we have our zoning regulations for a reason, but because you're requesting a modification, there are certainly things that can be,
Sure.
I have the capacity to kind of look at things. So this is
Okay.
kind of my question, and I can see an argument. I certainly understand trying to create a little bit more privacy and kind of the fact that there are multiple ways to enter the residence as proposed. Trying to contain it might make it a little bit more cozy, perhaps. But I'm just trying to think if there's any reason why that's, if that makes it less usable from a, spacing standpoint. And Ms. Burkhart, do you have any comment on that?
Not really. I think if you consider them not having to separate it, it could be access from the front entrance, not strictly the bedroom of whoever ends up having that room. It might be nice for them to not have people going that way.
So let's see. I think okay. I answered all my questions. I'm going to move to making a decision here. So again, thank you so much for your presentation, and I really appreciate the project. You've taken a very unique situation, again, something that's right on State Street, corner lot. It's a highly constrained situation, site, where you're trying to get parking, you're trying to, do the open yard. You've got, you're trying to make it a cozy residence. And again, working even with the different, the grades, how it's all just kind of it's a unique situation, but very much appreciate trying to get in an extra unit here in Santa Barbara. And I can go ahead and make the findings that the zoning, the modification for open yard is necessary to secure an appropriate improvement on the lot because, again, the site is so highly constrained for all the reasons that I just mentioned and as it's written in the staff report. And that it's consistent with the purposes of the zone and encourages a mix of uses. Again, this is a creative way to include a house, a residence, and I appreciate the fact that the residence is not on State Street, given the one-story element, but it is more on the Valerio side street. And I think that I'm going to suggest that as part of this, as I'm not sold on the barrier being there. I think that I'm going to leave it up to the applicant and the HLC to do as you wish for that particular barrier. I think that the consideration is that you could create a more private. I think the biggest concern I have is how do you make it feel buffered from the street, given kind of the openness and the access to State Street and Valerio. So if that makes it feel like there's more of a buffer, then maybe there's a benefit. But if it's the feeling is that it's, that you could have a better, more usable space by not having the barrier, then I'm supportive of that. So I'm not going to, that barrier piece does not necessarily need to be included on the plans. But again, I will let the applicant and HLC make that determination. Yes, Ms. Van Dyne.
Is that just something that I would present at the next HLC hearing is just ask them if it's their requirement to have the barrier there, if it's being left up to them and to us.
I think it, go ahead, Miss.
I think what we can say is that the staff hearing officer is fine with it. It's approved unless there's some aesthetic reason that it needs to be there. Is that
Right, that's
correct?
right.
Okay.
And I think, I think the applicant should really look at it and make a determine, like, does this make it more homey? And does this help the person who's living in there? But no. I mean, it's small, and that's why I
yeah,
question,
it's
because
such a
it's so,
small
well,
area.
I think part of my determination is that you've got that barrier, and then there's the lower grade with the other private open yard access, and you start to have all these gates and barriers, and I think it just seemed really awkward to me, and I think it makes more, like, it's a
So
tight
This
space.
is where it would go. I mean, it's
Right.
really only wide enough to walk. I don't even think, that dimension, I don't even think it's 3 feet. I wanted to say off the top of my head, I would want to say about 2.5 feet. So that barrier would have gone from the front facing wall to the edge of the existing. So it's
Right.
just a very small barrier. It doesn't really serve the future residents
Well,
in
it
any
could,
particular way.
the only other thing that it could do is make it feel more secure because it's going into a bedroom. So that's just a
Or if they have a
consideration.
pet.
Or if they have a pet.
Yeah.
So that's where it's like, I can see the benefit of, not kind of sectioning things off, given the reduced space. But yes, that I will leave those considerations to you. But I think from kind of keeping it a little bit more open, I'm okay with not having that barrier. And so I also will confirm staff's decision for the California Environmental Quality Act and that it's categorically exempt based on section 15303. That is my final decision. If Ms. Gu can go back to the screen, there's a 10-day appeal period. If anyone wishing to appeal my decision, they can do so within the next 10 calendar days, or my decision can be pulled by any member of the Planning Commission. Okay. Thank you again for your project.
Thank you.
And that, go ahead and conclude the staff hearing officer meeting for April 5th. Thank you.